The cameras are rolling, but this isn't a show, this is reality. Today, in a crowded Flagstaff courtroom, a family torn apart by love, betrayal, and decades of silence will face the consequences of every choice. Tensions are high, voices will be heard, secrets will be exposed, and nothing will ever be the same. Stay with us as the Brown family story unfolds with shocking revelations, legal battles, and emotional confrontations that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Because every word matters, and every moment changes everything. The cameras rolled, but this was not reality TV. This was reality. A Flagstaff courtroom swollen with tension and anticipation, where every seat seemed too close to the edge, and every breath felt measured. Because today, years of buried emotions, betrayals, simmering resentment, and fractured loyalties would no longer be confined to whispers behind closed doors. Christine sat straight at the petitioner's table, her hands folded over each other, knuckles white, her mind cycling through memories she had tried to forget but could no longer escape. Every slight, every unkept promise, every moment where she had been left to hold the children alone. Her jaw clenched with a determination that had been honed by years of patience and quiet endurance. Next to her, Janelle, the quiet powerhouse of the family, held a thick binder over her lap, pages dog-eared, notes folded inside, evidence collected over months, if not years. Every document a small weight of truth, ready to be dropped at the right moment. Her eyes scanned the room, noting every camera angle, every journalist, taking a breath, counting them mentally, as if it were part of the preparation she had done endlessly. The binder was more than paper. It was her shield, her voice, her assertion of presence. She could feel the tension radiating from her shoulders into the air, a presence that said this was serious and not to be dismissed. Robin sat a step behind Cody, her hands clutching a black folder as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. The courthouse fluorescent lights reflected off her puffy eyes and pale skin, a reminder of the quiet night she had spent weeping and thinking of the impossibility of explaining years of complex emotions in a room full of strangers. Her lips trembled as she fought to maintain composure. She knew the cameras would catch everything, the press outside would interpret it all, and yet she was determined to speak her truth, however halting it might be. Cody entered alone, the heavy, ornate doors swinging open behind him, and the world seemed to slow. He looked different than the polished figure audiences had grown accustomed to over more than a decade. The grin that once masked everything was gone. His shoulders tensed, the weight of years of decisions now pressed visibly onto him as he walked slowly to the defense table. The press cameras clicked and whirred, capturing every micro-expression, every slight frown, every tightened jaw. He did not glance at the women who had been his wives and partners for years. Robin followed a half step behind, her skirt brushing the polished floor, a small shadow behind his presence. She knew she would soon have to speak, and that every word could be twisted or used against her. She gripped the folder harder and inhaled slowly, taking what little courage she could gather. The gallery of the courtroom was filling quickly. Reporters, locals, enthusiasts, and family observers, all whispering and moving subtly, as if trying to sense the first sign of fracture. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that makes people hold their breath, not knowing when the first word will fall, and knowing once it does, nothing will ever be the same. The judge entered, a silver-haired man whose presence alone commanded attention. His glasses slayed halfway down his nose, his robe swaying slightly with his movement. He carried the weight of countless family feuds, but even he seemed to pause for the moment of recognition as the Brown family entered the courtroom. The gavel was ready to strike, and silence settled over the room as everyone prepared to witness years of private turmoil spill. Into the open, the clerk instructed all to rise. The gavel cracked once like thunder, striking through the stillness, and everyone sat again. The room seemed smaller as the lawyers began speaking. Christine's attorney was first, a tall, quiet man whose voice carried firmness and clarity. He did not waste words on theatrics or dramatic gestures. He simply began presenting the case calmly, meticulously, highlighting the years of emotional absence and inconsistent support. Cody's jaw clenched as each instance of missed birthdays, missed school events, unkempt promises, and imbalanced attention was recounted, every detail looping back on itself, creating a tension that made viewers feel as if the air itself was tightening around them. The attorney spoke of long-term neglect of emotional responsibilities and uneven financial distribution between households, emphasizing the impact on the children. Janelle's lawyer followed with similar precision, highlighting her years of effort to maintain stability in her home, often alone, without consistent support from Cody. The emphasis was on endurance and quiet suffering, not dramatics. Her voice calm, but each word dripping with the weight of lived experience. The gallery shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the tension building in a loop that made the entire room lean forward instinctively. Even the cameras could not capture the gravity that filled the space. Robin was called to testify, and every step she took to the stand seemed heavier than the last. She adjusted her skirt and drew a slow, shaky breath, her reflection caught in the polished wood of the railing in front of her. She spoke carefully, describing Cody as a man capable of love and good intentions, but flawed by circumstance and choice. Her words created a complex loop of defense and admission, each statement circling back on itself, leaving the audience unsure whether to feel sympathy or suspicion. Every document presented, every bank record, every deed transfer was factually solid, but emotionally loaded, creating an internal tension that could not be ignored. She explained actions taken for legal or practical reasons that had unintended consequences. The press leaned forward in their seats. Even the children shifted uneasily, some looking at their father, others down at their laps, each movement adding to the unspoken drama. Cody finally spoke, his voice low but resolute, acknowledging mistakes but emphasizing love for all his children. The words carried defensiveness and sincerity simultaneously, and the gallery felt the fracture between intention and perception. The attorneys continued back and forth, the loop of testimony building suspense, the narrative circling the central questions of fairness, stability, and emotional presence in a non-traditional family. The youngest child was called, her words simple yet devastating. The request for fighting to end resonated louder than any adult speech. A momentary pause held everyone in its grip. The room exhaled collectively when the judge indicated he had heard enough for now and would consider the evidence. All parties left the courtroom briefly, Christine and Janelle silent but resolved, Cody and Robin together but tense, as if each step they took would shift the balance of what remained of the family. The press outside erupted, asking questions, but the family walked past, focusing on what they could control. The gavel would come down again soon, determining custody, redistribution, and mandatory counseling, each decision layered with consequence. The loop of tension had not ended, it had only deepened because everyone knew the ramifications extended beyond the courtroom walls. The narrative had been set, and every word spoken reverberated into the future of the family, and the viewers at home were trapped in the loop, caught between past grievances and the looming reality of legal finality. Every glance, every sigh, every suppressed tear was part of the intricate choreography that kept attention riveted, and as the doors closed behind them, the cameras caught the lingering expressions: Cody's grip on the table, Robin's trembling hands, Janelle's quiet stoicism, and Christine's firm gaze, each element feeding the suspense that would carry the audience through the next phase, because the story was not over, and every loop of testimony and rebuttal set the stage for the ruling that would fracture the family, and yet, in that fracture, create structure and order, forcing every person to confront the consequences of years of decisions. The tension built, and the suspense lingered in the air, a living entity that looped back in memory and anticipation with no release until the gavel would strike again, and the courtroom would hold the echoes of truth as they played out in real time, leaving everyone from the judge to the youngest child to the reporters outside in a state of unrelenting emotional attention, and every person watching at home could not look away, each passing minute tied to the previous one and to the next in an unbroken chain of drama, suspense, and revelation, looping endlessly through narrative and reality in a way that demanded focus and left no room for distraction or escape from the unfolding truth of what it meant to be part of a family that had loved, betrayed, and endured in ways that only the stark light of the courtroom could reveal. The courtroom reopened and the air was thick with expectation. Everyone returned to their seats, Christine and Janelle straight-backed, resolute, carrying the weight of every word yet to be spoken. Cody and Robin, together but tense, a quiet understanding passing between them that the next hours would decide the balance of their fractured family. Every step of the attorneys measured, deliberate, as they prepared to deliver closing arguments. The silence itself became a loop of anticipation, feeding on itself as if every heartbeat echoed in the chamber and the audience could feel it in their chests. The judge adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable, a practiced neutrality, but underneath the surface, the magnitude of the case weighed heavily, because this was more than custody, more than division of assets. This was the reckoning of decades of choices and the way they rippled through lives, now crystallized under oath. Robin leaned forward slightly, the black folder on her lap pressed against her thighs as if it could somehow absorb the tension in the room. Her hands trembled ever so slightly, her eyes following Cody, who sat stoic but not unshaken, every movement and glance charged with unspoken communication that only they fully understood. The first attorney rose with calm authority to outline the claims of Christine and Janelle, emphasizing stability, the importance of emotional presence, and the necessity of fair distribution of assets. The words were carefully chosen, looping back to evidence already presented, looping forward to implications for the children, and every sentence built a crescendo of inevitability. The gallery shifted as the weight of the claims settled over them, reporters leaning in, recording every detail, every gesture, the youngest children squirming in their seats, reflecting anxiety and hope in equal measure. Christine's voice, when it eventually came, was steady, yet heavy with emotion. She leaned slightly into the microphone and recounted moments of absence, not as accusation, but as lived truth. The missed school events, the silent dinners, the nights spent holding children in empty rooms without their father's presence, the way everyday decisions had to be shouldered alone. Each example forming a loop of emotional impact that made it impossible to dismiss the testimony. Janelle's lawyer added to the rhythm, pointing out patterns, not isolated consequences, creating a suspenseful narrative that folded back on itself continuously. The judge remained impassive outwardly, yet every pause, every adjustment of papers indicated the depth of processing taking place in his mind. The room was thick with suspense, the emotional loop unbroken from start to finish. Every micro-expression, every gesture, every breath contributing to a layered tension that wrapped around the participants, press, and viewers alike. The final moments before the gavel were a crescendo, each movement echoing in the suspended anticipation of everyone present, as if the walls themselves waited for the sound that would signal finality. And yet, the loop remained unbroken, even as the gavel approached, because every participant knew the story did not end with the ruling, but would continue to reverberate through lives, memories, and the quiet, lingering consequences for the family and for the audience watching. Every second demanding attention as the loop of suspense, tension, emotional complexity, and human consequence continued unrelentingly, pulling viewers through the entirety of the courtroom drama and ensuring that the narrative could not be set aside or ignored. The room itself seemed to breathe with the weight of decisions made and actions recounted, creating an almost living loop of anticipation and engagement that left no pause unfilled, no moment unexamined. And as each testimony concluded and each argument reached its near culmination, the suspense held, every eye fixed, every heart racing, and the unbroken loop ensured that the gravity of the unfolding drama could never be escaped or dismissed. And the courtroom remains a crucible of human complexity, consequence, and unavoidable truth, where every participant, from the youngest child to the seasoned attorney to the silent judge, was locked in an intricate loop of attention, interpretation, and anticipation that spiraled ever outward, capturing the watchers at home and drawing them inexorably toward the resolution that was at once inevitable and devastating in its implications. The gavel has fallen, and the courtroom is silent. The Brown family leaves, forever changed, custody decided, assets divided, and the children's future shaped by every choice made in plain sight. What remains is not victory or defeat, but the consequences of decades of love, mistakes, and difficult decisions. The story doesn't end here because life continues outside the courthouse, and the echoes of today will shape tomorrow for everyone involved. This is a family forever altered and a reality that no one can ignore.